Welcome back to the program. You're listening to You and the Law on AM 650. I'm Sterling Fox, joined in studio with Joe Murphy and Scott Stanley from the law firm Murphy Battista here in Vancouver. Gentlemen, we appreciate the time you've taken to let us know a little bit about yourselves and your company in the opening segment. But now let's lean into it a little bit here, because we've talked about some of the instances that have, in which people require the services of a lawyer. Joe, you've talked about how you vet clients and make sure that the people you're going to represent and go to bat for are indeed legitimate and have a claim that is absolutely worth your time and effort. So on the other side of that coin, when a person is in a situation whereby they've been injured, you are personal injury lawyers. So when a person has been injured and feels that maybe I should get a lawyer involved, maybe I should talk to a lawyer, but they don't know anybody in the profession, not many of us do, where do you go? How do you start? We don't even have the yellow pages anymore, Joe, to turn to. We have a cyber equivalent, obviously, but really, where do you go to start?
Sterling, it's like me on my own looking to find a neurosurgeon for me or a family member. I'm lost. I've got to go to people who can give me suggestions. But it's got to be people who are knowledgeable in the business, who know the field. A great commercial lawyer won't do personal injury work, or shouldn't, and I don't do commercial litigation.
Right,
so
right.
It's really specialized in that sense. But you've got to rely on people. It may be an association, it may be someone you know, and you should go out and talk to 2 or 3 lawyers. Really what the person is looking for is a lawyer who's really good. Mm-hmm. And part of that being really good is a lawyer the client connects with. It's an important connection. And you've got to look at a lawyer who's going to charge a fee that's fair, because it's not one size fits all. It's not a situation, particularly with the more serious injuries, where the client is going to be paying the same fee regardless of which law firm they hire. And with the larger claims, there can be a huge difference between fees of firms. And it's not a matter of the larger fee gives you the better lawyer. That's not the case. So you've got to shop around. You should find out if this lawyer goes to court, because if they don't go to court, the insurance company knows that.
Okay.
And that's going to affect what happens to the case. And there are some lawyers in this business who essentially never go to trial.
Yes.
And the insurance companies know that, but the clients who hire them don't, and expect they've got a real fighter they've hired, and in fact they've hired a pussycat.
Now, is there a website, Scott, where you can go and check up like a lineup you would do in the hockey stats for your pool, where you can go and see who's been to trial and won, lost, and draws, and all of those sorts? Is there a place where people can go and investigate lawyers on the internet?
Yeah, and there is, and people should do that, because the insurance companies go and do that.
Oh,
and
that's
the first question they ask their defense lawyer: will this lawyer go to trial? But yeah, there's in BC, there's a www.courts.gov.bc.ca, or you can just Google BC Courts, and you can do a search. You can put in the prospective name of your lawyer. Their cases will pop up. Bearing in mind, jury trials don't show up on this website. But yeah, you can definitely go and see what the lawyer has done and what their results have been.
Now, one of the things that you talked about earlier, Scott, was and I don't know whether I'm splitting hairs here or not. Straighten me out. You talked about sometimes it's important that you speak to a lawyer, but you don't necessarily need to hire a lawyer. So explain the difference between the two.
Well, I think everybody that's in an accident needs to speak to a lawyer, but you don't necessarily have to hire a lawyer. And, for example, about 40 times a year, I talk to people and I tell them, I don't think you need to hire a lawyer, or you don't need to hire someone right now. The reality of it is, lawyers do these cases on a contingency.
Right.
And if you have a small case, where liability is not at fault, there's no broken bones, you're able to work, my view is that you probably don't need a lawyer. I mean, if your symptoms don't get better, then you do. But if you're better within, say, 6 to 8 months, you haven't missed much time from work, you don't need a lawyer. ICBC will always pay you more money with a lawyer, But in cases like that, the extra money the lawyer will get you is often just enough, and sometimes not even enough, to cover the fees the lawyer's going to charge.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, all of the advice rendered would be, the settlement would go right back to the source of the advice.
But it's important for people to talk to a lawyer to make sure they don't have a complicated case, to make sure that liability is not an issue. Because if you don't get any money unless you can prove the
other person was at fault.
And if liability is going to be an issue, you'd probably want a lawyer to go and do that investigation. But if it's not, you don't need to. If you haven't had there's no concern that the person has some sort of hidden injury, then they probably don't need to hire a lawyer.
Joe, a lot of people go forward after being involved in an accident and being injured in some way. They go forward and try and take this on themselves without any legal advice whatsoever. Now, I'm just following up on what Scott was saying about speaking to a lawyer versus hiring a lawyer. So the advice here would be, if you're in an accident, take the time to at least speak to a lawyer. Why, Joe? Because that person will give you a straight assessment of what your chances of succeeding with some compensation.
Sterling, we're ideally contacted within days of an accident by a client, and what we'll do at the end of meeting with the client or speaking to them on the phone, we'll say, possibly, you don't need a lawyer, your claim is worth X dollars, and here's what you need to say to the insurance company, and here's what you need to do to get them to pay you that money. So we give them the knowledge and the process so that they can get the money themselves. There's no fee. If, on the other hand, we see a client who needs a lawyer, we'll say, you need a lawyer, you need to hire them now for these reasons. I was hired in one case 6 years after the accident, and there was a big issue about what happened in the accident. And it was very, very difficult try and piece together a case
6 years
that
old
resulted in me being able to recover from my client a substantial sum of money. This was a fellow left very, very badly brain injured from an accident when he pulled out onto a highway and was hit by a passing car. But no, speak to a lawyer, because if you don't need a lawyer, we'll tell you that, and if you do need a lawyer, we'll tell you why, and you can then decide, okay, do I want to hire this firm, or do I want to go and talk to another firm or two before making that decision.
And that's not a bad thing to do either.
Well,
if you're new to this whole scene, is it not? Is comparison shopping not a good consumer route to follow?
It's a good idea, but the difficulty is the layman being able to compare law firms.
Okay.
Every law firm says we're the best. We will fight the insurance company to the death, but the client has to do the research to find out if that's the case, and there has to be a good personal connection with the lawyer. One of the biggest complaints of people is, say, I phoned my lawyer and he never called me back. About a third of the cases we have are clients who fired...
Do I sound like I've been there?
...fired their first lawyer and came to us. Well, the philosophy in our firm is clients get phoned back that day or the next day.
Right.
Maybe there are some cases where that doesn't happen, but I'm very fervent saying they've got to be called back. Even if you phone them back and say, I've got nothing to report,
right. Just checking
you're
in.
not ignoring them, you
Right.
haven't forgotten them.
Right.
So those are those things. So there's the connection, there's the competence, and there's the legal fees. And the legal fees, particularly on bigger cases, can vary wildly.
So, Scott, are people, do they balk at speaking with the lawyer because they're afraid to surrender a piece of the settlement? Is it the money that causes people to say, I can do it myself, I don't need a lawyer, come on?
Well, I mean, we only see the people that phone us. They're motivated enough to call us, right?
Right.
I mean, we don't...
But the majority of people, maybe not
Yeah.
the majority, but a significant percentage of people who should at least talk to a lawyer never do.
Well, 60% of ICBC cases are settled without a lawyer.
Right.
And I think it used to be 70. I think it's up to 60 now. So there's a large number of people that don't deal with lawyers. But I think everyone should at least talk to somebody.
Well, what I'm learning here, just based on what Joe said a few minutes ago, is if you're involved in an accident of any kind and you're going to present your case to ICBC for some kind of compensation, you have to be able to say the right words. If you approach ICBC with, here's the deal, and A, B, C, all your ducks in a row, so to speak, you're more likely to be satisfied and paid out quickly because you know how to do the dance. And if you don't, they'll let you dance forever.
Well, a lot of times it's just about getting documents together and getting materials together. ICBC is not going to pay a claim unless it's been proven that there's a claim to be paid. And,
Fair enough.
It's pretty easy just to tell people this is what you need to satisfy ICBC that they ought to pay these minor claims. It's literally a half an hour conversation with most people, and they can have it sorted out that they can deal with it on their own. Mm-hmm. And lawyers do this for free. I mean, lawyers are always happy to
charge.
Yeah, no, and
well, you see, that's interesting because I just asked you, Scott, about the money. Do people not come to your offices or give you a phone call or even go to the website because they're afraid it's going to cost them too much?
Every lawyer does a free consultation. We do. I don't know of any lawyer that charges for these consultations.
Okay, and so that's just a service that's provided by Murphy Battista. Is this fairly across the board in the profession?
I think so. And the reason we do it, and the reason other lawyers do it, is just to vet claims to determine whether or not it's a claim we want, whether or not it's a situation the client wants a lawyer, needs a lawyer.
Okay. And once that initial contact is made, let's talk about the website here, first of all, because a lot of people listening to us right now have, well, the computer's close by, so let's go find out what these guys are really all about. What's the address, Scott?
MurphyBattista.com.
Okay. Battista is 2 T's. Murphy, as you would expect, an Irish name. Battista, BATTISTA.com.
We're still some debate whether that's a Portuguese name or an Italian name, but...
Okay, so again, there's an opportunity to look at the firm and get a little bit of an idea of what you do. Joe, in terms of the area of personal injury, how much of your time is of the firm is taken up dealing with automobile cases versus any other type of personal injury?
Probably 70%.
Really? That
70% is auto, and the other 30% would be we do some medical malpractice work. We do disability insurance claims. We do insurance claims, fire claims. And that pretty well makes up the 100%, but auto are 70%.
Slip and falls, people getting beat up by the police.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought
Assaults,
that workplace injuries would have been a higher quotient in that mix, and it really doesn't seem to be. Or is that because of the WCB and they have a whole other thing going on?
Nothing we can do for those people because there's no ability for a lawyer to help those people largely.
Why is that?
Well, it's a no-fault system.
The system doesn't allow most workers to sue anyone. They're stuck with the WCB benefits or WorkSafe benefits.
Interesting.
So they don't have a choice.
Whereas in an accident situation, you have a number of options.
Yes.
And do you, as the lawyers, when you sit down with a client for the first time and they present their case, I was in an accident, here's what happened to me, I'm still messed up, I'm still angry, and I want some justice here or some compensation. Is that typically the theme? Is that what people say? I'm just, or Joe is, I want my life back.
I think
right?
it's more common saying I just want to get back to work and I want to get my life back and
Right.
I want to get my health back. There is anger, and oftentimes it's understandable when you look at what people have gone through and how they've been treated.
Right.
But the anger usually doesn't arrive until people have reached the conclusion where they can't get their life back.
Okay.
Anger doesn't arrive right away. It comes up afterwards. And you can ask your clients, do you want money or do you want to go back in time and make this accident not happen? And they always want to go back in time.
Absolutely.
Something we can't do for them.
Well, of course, yeah. MurphyBattista.com is the website. You're listening to You and the Law on AM 650, Sterling Fox, along with Scott Stanley and Joe Murphy. And we'll be right back after these words.